Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Best Ideas Happen on the Loo, our World Toilet Day podcast series, where we celebrate the people and the ideas transforming sanitation, social impact, and innovation all across the world. My name is Cheval. I'm your host today, and I'm very, very thrilled to be joined by Rémi, our guest today from CBSA. And I would like to hand over to you so you can introduce yourself.
Thank you. Nice to be here. I'm Rémi. I'm the director of the Container-Based Sanitation Alliance. It's a mouthful, so we'll just say CBSA for now.
Thank you so much. I would like to start with some fun rapid fire questions. So I would love to know from you, are you a coffee or a tea person?
Both depends on the time, but yeah, I've spent too long in the UK, so I've had to convert to tea with milk.
Oh, I see. And are you a morning or night owl?
I would be more of a morning person, my partner isn't, so it's a half and a half.
The
On the
opposite.
worst days, the worst of both worlds when you wake up very tired, and sometimes the best.
And what is your favorite place where you've had an aha moment?
A place to have an aha moment, not usually on the loo, because that's the title of the podcast. I'm afraid I tend to have very practical thoughts on the loo. Need to reorder this thing or this need to figure it out. Aha moment, walking. I guess walking when without the phone, without music, just internally going away and going through things. It's usually interrupted by one of my kids saying, "Dad, you're talking by yourself again." I'm embarrassing them immensely. Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
when it happened.
Do you listen to like a song, podcast, or is it absolute silence on the loo?
On the loo, it's never silent when you have kids.
Oh.
It can't be long either. It's just get back to life quick.
Thank you so much. This was fun. I always like to do these. I would like to continue with my first question, which is what first brought you into the world of sanitation?
So what brought me there? Okay, I studied engineering as in naval architecture, how to make ships and boats. I liked sailboats, and I started to enjoy others. I came to the UK to learn how to make ships. During my studies, I also became very interested in activism, in international solidarity, on making another world is possible. This sort of thoughts, on realizing that to work with ships, the jobs are mostly in oil and luxury industries. There's others, but it's a hard world to break into. So it's can't really reconcile this. And then a lecturer was doing a lecture for the engineering students on water and sanitation for in the developing world or something like that. Okay, I'm going to listen to this. And half the world doesn't have toilets. Okay, I'm doing that. It was self-evident that there was something to do there. So when I told my parents at the time that I was changing studies the following year to go into sanitation, they were like, "Well, are you sure?" But also, okay, we're not too surprised that toilets would kind of attract you. Yeah.
That's super interesting. How was that transition to like in a new field and then from uni to work as well?
It was good because I was very lucky that I was in Southampton University, which at the time had Ben Fawcett as the lecturer for a course called Engineering for Development. And it was aimed at either development practitioners wanting to gain technical skills or engineers wanting to understand how to adapt this to lower income areas. And Ben Fawcett wrote The Last Taboo, a book in 2008 together with Maggie Black on sanitation. So he was very passionate about that, and he had worked a long time in Oxfam. If you see the big tanks that Oxfam uses in emergencies, he invented this in his master's. Big inspiration. So it was very helpful in a very clear way of, well, you've got skills that you want to apply in a better way. Learning a lot also about roads and electricity and housing and those sort of things. And heaven for engineers.
There's a lot to untackle there. And what would you say is your main mission now of your organization?
Okay, so our mission is to make container-based sanitation a normal way of doing sanitation. So container-based sanitation, or CBS, is what Loowatt does, for example, and many other organizations around the world. It's putting toilets where engineers usually shrug and say, "We have no idea." Put a public toilet nearby, maybe, because it's a flood-prone area, or because it's an informal settlement, etc. You can't dig. If you can't dig, an engineer doesn't know what to do for sanitation. Every sanitation approach rests on digging. And 15 years ago, a few folks, Loowatt and others, came and said, "Well, how about we use these small toilets and we empty them often? And we make it pleasant, we make it attractive, we make it something people actually want." And it worked. So it's great. It means you can have sanitation places where it's well, it's not usually available, but it's not yet something considered normal. It's tolerated by many governments. It's sometimes accepted, but it's not actively regulated, financed, etc. And that's what I want. I really like it. So I want it to be considered a normal way of doing sanitation alongside other options. So the word in our strategy is mainstream, but that's boring for a podcast. So make it normal. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a moment where you realize that this is what I want to do? When was that moment for you?
Yes, there was. So again, I was lucky because the course I did had student projects, preferably with international organizations that would want some free labor for a while. And for me, it was with Oxfam in Haiti, in Cap Haitien. So that's in a northern city. And I went there, and Oxfam wanted to do a water and sanitation, relatively large program. And for the water, they had it all figured out. All the plans were there. For sanitation, nothing. Very typical of big water and sanitation projects. So we started by doing a typology of the city on what could be done in different areas. So here, the septic tanks, if you had better emptying, why not? Here on the hills, well, it's more sparse. People are cultivating things, quite like ecological sanitation. We could do that. And here are these very dense informal settlements by the sea, flooded twice a day by the tide. There's so much that's really wrong there. But can we do something for sanitation? And not really. And then I was lucky to work with Steve Sugden, an inventor and sanitation practitioner. And we looked at the options. And what if, instead of digging too much, you had a smaller container that you would remove every so often? We ran the numbers. It didn't make any sense as a business to do this. No, you would lose a ton of money. We put it in the report for Oxfam and left it there. And then a few years later, I learned that there was an organization in Haiti doing exactly that. And that was soil. What do you mean? In this very location, they are doing a safe sanitation service in this very settlement in Shada at the time. This is amazing. And then I learned about others doing the same. Wow. I love to be proven wrong when it's with good news. And I think Loowatt was also one of the very first few ones I learned about back then in Madagascar, of all places. So yeah, then learning about it in Ghana, in Kenya, etc. That was amazing. And I thought, well, that was one of the most exciting things I had heard in urban sanitation in Omai. So yeah, a few years ago, there was the opportunity to work with CBSA that gave that a shot. And here I am. So I'm very happy. It's very, very motivating every day to see everything that's happening.
I love how you said that. It's great to be surprised by good news.
Yeah, to be proven wrong,
Yes,
especially.
absolutely.
I'm the kind of person who will talk a lot, and sometimes I talk too quickly. So I will have beliefs that are wrong, and I'm very happy when it's wrong, for good reason.
How do you recall the reactions when these container-based toilets were first introduced in those regions? How did the people react?
So it depends on which people you're talking about. Because the common point between Loowatt, Oil, etc., other organizations like that, is that it didn't start with, oh, let's invent a beautiful thing and see how it goes. It was, we start from working in settlements in Haiti, Antananarivo, etc. What do people actually want? And when it comes to sanitation, what are wishes, what are aspirations? Work backwards from this. So it was part of the sanitation marketing movement that was also, sort of 2005, 2010 kind of era. Where what if we stopped the provider is right kind of attitude? Because that, if you do this, then you do like a lot of NGOs and you install concrete slabs, which it's helpful in some cases, but it's extremely boring. It's not aspirational. It's not something people want to pay for. But also, if you ask, people say, well, a flush toilet, of course, something that will waste everything into sewers, etc. And also that's not going to come in the next few decades. Okay, so what is behind this aspiration? Okay, now that we understand this better, how can we come as close as possible to this? What are people actually willing to pay for, to install, to be proud of? So the reaction in most cases was very positive from users, with a lot more demand than the organizations were able to fulfill. From authorities, it varied a lot. And I think a lot of organizations started without too much involvement of authorities or being tolerated. I think we're seeing more adoption, more willingness from government to endorse this, to see the role. But of course, it was something very new done by some crazy innovators. So it's understandable that people would be a bit dismissive. Yeah, so varied reactions in the sector as well. Amongst professionals, there were ambiguous reactions, and some very enthusiastic and sometimes over enthusiastic about it. Oh, this is going to revolutionize everything, it's going to leapfrog sewers, etc. On some more doubtful.
How was it for you to sort of balance innovation, like you come from this creative perspective, you see the solution, but then also with the community and cultural contexts and their needs so that it's not too complicated, but still offers the solutions that they need.
It's interesting you word it this way because I think a lot of people confuse innovation with invention, or
Mm.
innovation with
Mhm.
something, with a new product, with something shiny. And the same has happened in sanitation when often, I think this is the issue with the way the Melinda Gates Foundation operates, is that very often sanitation is reduced to a technical issue to solve. What if you reinvent
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
toilet? It's not a bad thing in itself, but if your focus is on reinventing the toilet, then you are going to have reinvented toilets. But actually, the toilet is only a part of the sanitation chain, and suddenly it's the part with the user experience, but it's not easy to distinguish this from the whole chain. The innovation brought by CBS providers like Loowatt is more about a service. So something that it's not a product that you sell and you go away. It is a service that you come, start operating, you continue operating this for a long time. You're in for the long run. If you do this, then you are going to have to adapt along the way. You are going to be willing to change tack, etc., to adapt whatever technical solution is used, to adapt whatever sales technique you use, etc. You don't just call it a day. Things are going to
Mm.
evolve. So you see a lot of small innovations along the way to ensure that people are happy with what they have, to ensure that they are willing to pay. A bit like being a water utility. You
Mhm.
serve your customers day after day. You have to respond to any issues, and you have to adapt to small trends. The latest flood, etc., but also long-term trends like climate crisis.
Would you think there's other misconceptions that people still have about toilets or sanitation?
It's not something we think a lot about. Flushing and forgetting is very much part of Western society. It's
Mm.
not terribly wrong in itself from a user perspective. I think the big challenge is that, as you say, we do waste a lot by flushing away nutrients. Pouring on soil means it's recycled by Mother Nature, and in water means it's harming water ecosystems. But of course, if you live in a city, then like the majority of the world's population, then you can't, you know, just go in nature. So that's the big challenge. How do we avoid putting everything back in water? And you can probably do this while keeping the flush and forget mentality. But it's not so easy. We've seen an interesting shift, and I was rereading recently Lina Zeltovich's book, The Other Dark Matter, which really looked at this issue and how we talk actually a lot more about poo, about bodily functions, about sanitation recently. With she was quoting poo emojis, and
Mhm.
for example, that made a big comeback. But as a way of, it's not less disgusting, but it's something that can be talked about a bit more, and therefore regularly people rediscover that
Mhm.
we are wasting nutrients, we are exacerbating the climate crisis, and we could have a lot of positive impact by changing a little bit of how sanitation functions. But it's not a big topic that mobilizes a lot of people outside of a small
Mhm.
circle, I feel.
I remember having this conversation with Maya from Soil, and she also touched upon this. Like, we have flushless or waterless options, but it's still not the standard or the golden standard because there are these taboos in certain societies where you just don't talk about the waste. Yeah, where it's not considered important in a sense, because as you said, you just flush and forget.
Yeah. I think it comes with urban life. It's part of Western society. It's also part of urban life. If the more you're disconnected from nature, the less you realize the importance of soil, the importance of nutrient recycling, etc. It's understandable. And
Mhm.
also,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if there can be a dry sanitation method appropriate for big cities. There are nice experiments. I mean, in a couple of weeks, I will be at the second European Congress on Circular Sanitation, which is very exciting
Oh.
because it it's what brings together networks of French ecological sanitation enthusiasts, German, Swiss, and a few others together. Now, these
Mhm.
networks often started as crazy people building eco toilets in their backyards. I if I owned my house, I would do the same probably. I'm this kind of person, but now acknowledging that this is the minority. So the question is more in terms of
Mhm.
advocacy, in terms of business models. How do we change things? How do we change it so that you don't have to change the behaviors of billions of people because it's hard, it's impossible. But you
Mhm.
change how things are regulated, are planned. What is the normal way of doing sanitation? And I'm not sure if there will be a good answer for Western cities, but they're evolving a lot. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that.
Do you think we need to bring this topic closer to people who are maybe not affected by it as much or where it's not I don't want to say an urgent problem because we're talking valuable resources, but do you think we should still shift the sanitation paradigm within cities?
So that's two different questions. I think, yes, the paradigm should be changed, but most people don't know where the water comes from when they open the tap, if they have a tap at home, and don't care where their waste goes. And changing this would be extremely hard. I don't think I want to change that, but I think what can change is how professionals behave and how these systems are planned and regulated in the first place. Currently, the financial incentives for sanitation is to build big treatment plants that operate along very well-known parameters. You do your primary, secondary treatment, maybe tertiary if needed. Nutrient recycling is never integrated in this at the moment. Not never, but very rarely. This needs to change. But when you talk with water and sanitation professionals, you feel a big disconnect between those who operate in low-income areas, who think a lot about that, who know we need a mix of solutions, and professionals from the big utility world, especially from Western countries, who think about big plans and big pipes. And I'm being very stereotypical right now. It's not always like this. The incentives are aligned this way. So these need to change. Maybe public consciousness can help with this. I think we have seen attitudes shift when it comes to climate crisis, with energy use. There are things that help people think differently. I think a lot more people recycle, source separate solid waste, and realize the importance of compost, for example, at home. It's not too hard to do. Plus, you have an added incentive in the sense that if you separate your compost bin will stink a bit, but yeah, it's quickly emptied. But your normal bin will stink less, for example. But small things. But the rates of source separation have increased a lot with small incentives. Could the same happen in sanitation? It's hard because it's a lot of different infrastructure. But I think if the incentives are aligned right, then yeah, I think it's possible. Public change in consciousness won't happen without that.
And where do you see sanitation go in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? What would you, maybe that's the two parts. What do you wish and what do you see more realistically?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting one. To look at this, I need to take a look back. So it's when you work in a given sector, you feel like things are not moving, or it feels sluggish, etc. Last year, I reread a book called The Big Necessity by Rose George. She's a journalist, and she's very good at taking a single topic and making it fascinating. And she did one on toilets in 2008 for the International Year of Sanitation. It's very good. It's a very good book. And I reread it, and I thought, okay, Japanese toilets. Oh yeah, remember that's still great. And the taboo, yeah, still very present. Rural sanitation, oh yeah, that things have changed a bit. Yeah, coincidental sanitation, interesting innovation, etc. On urban sanitation, my goodness, the most exciting thing she had at the time was the invention of a pit emptying pump called the Gulper by Stephen Sugden, the person I was with in Haiti, actually, which I agree was a wonderful invention that really changed how pit emptying works. But that was the most exciting thing happening. It was very experimental, a bit amateurish, effectively, because that's how it was considered. And 15 years later, I was thinking, wow, things have changed. There are now accepted approaches. There are now huge change in regulatory frameworks, in how money flows, in how most mainstream organizations are thinking, in utilities taking responsibility for non-sewage sanitation, which means things have progressed a lot. And I felt good about that, Oh, wow. So it's easy to be pessimistic and to think same old. And actually, no, things have evolved a lot. Still a lot of work to do, but yeah. In the next 5 to 10 years, so how things are going? Well, my wish is that we see a backlash against the backlash. At the moment we see this too shall pass, and I need to be optimistic, and I am helped a lot by the folks who are doing the good work, like Loowatt, to stay optimistic. So I hope and I think there will be another change this way, realizing that the current backlash is dead ends, and that we do need to act against the climate crisis, and we will act concretely. Specifically for sanitation, it's hard to say, but I think there is momentum at the moment that's harder to stop in terms of commitments from governments, in terms of regulations changing, so that to make sure that everybody has access to this basic rights, and also in seeing sanitation provision as solving problems instead of creating problems. Very often sanitation is just one more problem to solve, and the very hard one is it, especially in informal settlements, for example. Well, what do you think the bill is for installing these miles of sewers? My goodness, we'll never be able to do this. And I like how working with CBSA members like Loowatt, Soil, Energy, etc., is showing This is creating solutions. It's bringing you money in the form of climate finance, carbon credits, etc. It's putting sanitation where you think it was impossible. It's showing how people can contribute to the cost of sanitation, how it's making it cheaper
Mhm.
overall. And this is good news. It's bringing new efficiencies for sanitation. And if you're an enlightened enough leader on behalf of you, then you you will be motivated by this. I think a lot of the change happens at local level when it comes to sanitation, so at municipality level. And this is not always very visible on the international scene, but it does matter a lot. I think the momentum is now really, really here in sanitation. It would be harder to stop, but we have to keep at it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love how I'm hearing this more and more often. Get like, because even if progress feels slow, you still can look back and see how far you have come. Is there anything where you would say that makes you hopeful and that keeps you going in, let's say, times where it feels a bit sluggish?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this year's a perfect example because looking at the news in 2025 is yet another terrible
Mm.
thing uh, against the environment, against inclusion, against gender, disability, etc. So it's been very, very hard to stay motivated this year. I think what helps a lot is the day job involves talking to people who deliver basic services. You all kept going. It carries on. And not only does it
Mhm.
carry on, it keeps innovating, it keeps adapting, it keeps bringing good news. Wow, that felt good.
Mhm.
Hang on, they're carrying on, so I should as well. And it doesn't mean not working on all the other pressing issues. There's a lot to do at home. There's a lot to do in the UK at the moment. But that goes together. It's all being part of a better world.
Do you have, adding on this, do you have a favorite story? Maybe you've had a conversation with a local where you could see the impact of how their lives changed because now they have safe sanitation. Do you have a favorite story of that kind?
Many. I mean, my role is such that I don't get these stories firsthand, but I do keep seeing
Mhm.
them. I mean, it's easy to be a bit cynical when you work in international solidarity because you see, case study after
Mhm.
case study, etc. But in the end, it does come down to I didn't have a toilet, now I do have one. And when you dig a bit under this, it's I had to go out at night and there are snakes, or there are people who could assault me, or I have a disability and I live in indignity. It's small things, but of course, when you're living them, it's huge. It's everything in life. I don't have a single favorite story, I'm afraid, but seeing this repeated confirms, that this is an
Mhm.
important thing to do.
Yeah, I can relate to that because even with my work, I'm not on the site in the local region seeing it, but you hear all these collective stories, and it's far more than just a toilet. It touches on not only we've talked about this on climate, environment, but on dignity and health, like actual humans' lives getting changed. So I think in moments where it can feel a little bit frustrating because there's funding issues, there's a lot of things going on in the news,
Yeah.
you still remember the faces of these people.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you can say this about a lot of basic services, about housing, about energy, on how access to a given app will change how farmers can plant their crops and suddenly have a lot more income. This changes their lives, etc. So there's many, many
Mhm.
good things to do. The interesting thing with sanitation and why I keep working on it is it's so invisible and
Mhm.
and yet this is one of the very first few things you notice when you don't have it. You're
Yeah.
caught short in public or in a hospitable place, and then what can I rely on? It's very personal, very private, very shameful if you can't
Mhm.
access it to it. So that's the moment when you think back and realize, oh yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that there's sort of an irony that comes with it. It's like we all know it's a necessity. We're doomed if we don't have it in a sense, or we feel this urgency, yet we still have this taboos around it sometimes. To close off this round, I have two final questions for you. I would love to know, how has this work changed you as a person?
It's easy when working in international solidarity to throw out big words,
Mhm.
in gender and inclusion. And you to have a successful funding proposal, you have to align all the words in the right place. It's like a
Mhm.
bingo card. Um, and therefore easy to be cynical, detached about it. When it's something a bit more that you see firsthand and that relates so well to your own experiences, like I just said, then you start to integrate more these aspects in your life as well. You know,
Mhm.
what am I doing for gender equality in my family life, in my daily life? What am I doing for
Mhm.
inclusion, for disability access in my neighborhood? It's not enough to help folks who are thousands of miles away. Um, and and therefore, seeing the interrelatedness of this and
Mhm.
how to be a better person on a daily basis, that's one aspect. The other is slightly more work related, is that seeing that Loowatt uses the same toilets in Madagascar, South Africa, and in the UK. And similarly, there are people providing the service in the UK for people living on houseboats, for example.
Mhm.
And then you realize, well, hang on, toilets, the lack of access to toilets is hitting close at home as well. There are wonderful researchers who are doing studies in the UK about people being unable to, if you have some disabilities, then the city is closed for you. You know, there's been a
Mhm.
lack of toilets in many, many places. Or even, if you have a problem, it's already very hard. If you're in a wheelchair, even harder. And if you have disabilities, that means you need a carer. Well, you have a map that tells you the few places in the UK where you can go. Oh,
Mhm.
Um, and
I think that's what I always find fascinating. It doesn't matter with who you're talking to in this sector. This is like a core thing that unites everybody because you're doing it for so much more than just running a business or making profit. It's so much more above that. And I would love to finish this off with asking you if you could share one message with the world on World Toilet Day.
I'm not good at this sort of things. That's why I don't do your kind of work. I would guess is to, there are people who do have the luxury of sitting for a bit longer on the loo, and who are maybe
Mm.
listening to this while they're doing so. Who knows? If you have this luxury, then you're also the luxury of thinking where this luxury isn't possible. And therefore, what can you do to support this? And there are many possibilities, but even if that's just supporting an organization that's working on this, or taking more of an interest, picking up one of the books I mentioned to learn
Mhm.
more about the sanitation crisis, and how it relates to other aspects. Or even better, take one of these good books on the loo. Uh, yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna read them myself as well.
Yeah.
And thank you so, so much. I mean, this was incredible. And I loved hearing your insights, your humor especially, and your passion that you bring to your work. And it really reminds us and all the listeners that this is like much more. It's about creativity, human connection, but also human dignity. And to everybody who listens, thank you so much for tuning in into the best ideas happen on the Loo. You can find more episodes and stories from alike innovators. And yeah, we will see you next time. Thank you.